do you really want someone who is going to approach candidates and say, I'm looking for a C hashtag developer?
Welcome back, Guy. Part 1, we discussed how software engineers can work effectively with a recruiter when they're looking for a role. In this episode, we're going to flip things around the other way, discuss how hiring managers can work effectively with recruiters. One thing I have noticed working with a lot of managers over the last 20 years is that they don't necessarily know how to work well with a recruiter, whether that's in-house or external. And perhaps from their background as software engineers in the past, they might not always have the best impression of recruiters. So there still can be a bit of an us and them, and that leads to hiring managers not always working as effectively as they could with a recruiter. So what would be your advice for hiring manager of how to work effectively with a recruiter?
Yeah, this is purely me taking a stab in the dark. But I would say that a significant proportion of bad experiences that candidates have with recruiters are caused by the recruiter not having a very good experience with the hiring manager or the company that is doing the hiring. The more engaged that they are by the client and the more information that the client is willing to give, the more that the client is willing to have regular conversations with them to help them get a real thorough understanding of the requirement, to ask questions, to clarify things, inevitably the kind of more effective they're going to be. There's also a real there's a myth, I guess is the best way of putting it. There's certainly a lack of understanding, whereby a lot of kind of hiring managers or clients will kind of assume that the best way to work is to get as many recruiters working for you as possible. More is good, more is better. But it really doesn't work like that. The example that I've heard before is it's like kind of hiring 4 decorators to paint your house, and saying that you'll basically pay the one that finishes painting it first, and you've just got 4 people madly painting as quickly as possible, painting over each other's work, and you just end up with a mess. And that's, I'm sure most developers would have had a situation where they get called by one recruiter and it's really fast. And they're like, what this person wants to get a lot of information from me in a very short space of time. They're not really allowing me to ask them questions. And during that call, like, it's a weird call and not a great experience. And within the 10 minutes they've been on that call, they've got 3 missed calls from other numbers. And it's because a company has gone out to 7 recruiters all at the same time with the same information, all fishing in roughly the same pool. They'll all have their own networks and stuff separate from LinkedIn, separate from job boards, etc. But it does not make for a good experience. It also kind of makes a quick candidate quite often question, what the hell's going on here? Why does this company need 7 different recruitment agencies to do this? So it's something to consider. I would always say go out to one agency initially, at least, give them a chance to kind of thoroughly search the market for a few weeks, and if that doesn't work out, then gradually add into that, but don't just go out to kind of numerous all at once, because you'll never get as good a service, because the priority then is not, I need to get the best shortlist of some really good people. It's, I need to cover the market as much as possible so that I've got everyone covered in my name, so that my competition go for them. And that creates some really bad practices that are not ethical on the part of recruiters. But it's you've got to think about what you're incentivizing on their part effectively on that basis.
Yeah, and I have worked for a couple of big companies where the companies had a PSL, preferred supplier list, of sometimes only 3 or 4 agencies.
Yeah.
But when we have to put every vacancy out to them, and we've just had to kind of share them out, the company's not really been that great at organising it. So I'd open up a requisition, it's on the system, the agencies can just grab it, and I'd then start getting CVs before any of them ever spoken to me, because they've just seen the job spec as an open rec, or they got an email from them. I don't know how the back end of the talent system worked, but they start applying for it and they start sending me CVs, and almost immediately I'd start getting overlapping CVs. So the same candidate from a couple of different agencies. That can create problems for you as a hiring manager then, or the talent team, trying to work out who would get paid if you hire them. Fortunately, that hasn't been my problem to really care about, but from my point of view, it was redundant and a waste of time as a hiring manager getting the same CV from everyone on the PSL, because I'm not getting any better service now. I'm just getting to see the same CVs over and over and over again with no better quality candidate, because, as you say, everyone's fishing in the same pool. Here in the UK, most people's CVs are going to be on Reed or Indeed or JobServe or CW Jobs, or one of the other. There's about 5 or 6 jobs boards. If people look in, the CVs will be there, and all recruiters will be looking at the same, and you're going to get about the same. Whereas when I've been in an organisation where I could go out and choose my own recruiter, and I've had that recruiter working one-to-one with me, we've been able to meet up, discuss the vacancy, go through the details, form a much better understanding. And I think that has really helped me. Then when I get from them has been 3 or 4 CVs that are well screened, that are good, that have been very efficient for me to be involved. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, it's been easier for them to then recruit because they've come and talked to me for half an hour about the role. They've got an understanding of it. They understand how I want to go about recruitment. They understand what the process is going to be. Does that match your experience?
100%. I'm feeling more motivated because there is more commitment from you to me in terms of the fact that I'm not one of however many. I know that I've got a reasonably good chance. Well, I've got a 100% fill rate in the roles that I've ever worked with where I've worked exclusively. I know that I'm going to fill it on that basis. So that means that I can then go, it's worth me putting as much time and effort as I need to into working on it. But it also means that I can go, do you know what? My starting point is not necessarily hitting all of those places that you're talking about. My starting point might be going, okay, I can look at who do I already know that could be a good fit for this. I can search through, put some communications out to people in my network. I can then do a LinkedIn search, and then I can go and look on a job board. But often when it goes out to multiple agencies, you kind of got to hit the job boards first, because that's where there's people who are visibly saying, I am looking for work. Here is my CV. Here are my details. And you can do it as quickly as possible. But if you want, but when you get candidates on that basis, then often they've got numerous opportunities they're considering. Whereas if you've got someone who is going out working on an exclusive basis, they're able to kind of be more proactive and headhunt people. Those people they headhunt are, generally speaking, going to be less active on the market. There's less competition there. And so you're more likely to be able to successfully secure those people. And you're getting a full view of the market as opposed to a panicked view of the market. And it makes for a far better experience from the candidate's perspective as well, which ultimately means that when you do decide that you want to offer someone a role, they're much more likely to accept it as a result.
It almost sounds like if you're looking for contractors or short-term staff and you want somebody fast, blitz the market, go and pile them high. If you want a good long-term hire, really focus and work with somebody one-to-one. Or am I reading that wrong?
With contractors, it's no different. It's still the case of, I think there's more validity to that sort of approach, but I would still say that you're going to get a better service if you go out to one person, because they're going to be looking at things and that they're going to be able to, apart from anything, you can be really honest and consultative in terms of saying, like, this person's really good at these things. I think they're less of a good match in terms of these things. And they can do that kind of safe in the knowledge that they're giving a great service for the client and they're not doing it at their own detriment, because it's of no good to anyone to kind of like push someone who is perhaps not as good as someone else that you've got at your disposal. But when you're thinking about, I don't know what that agency over there have sent over, I don't know what the competition looks like in terms of other candidates, then you're more likely to be a bit more, I don't know, like you're less likely to be forthcoming with the kind of faults and areas of improvement that some candidates might have, to give a full rounded picture than you would be if you're working exclusively. And actually, the best solution is always going to be the best solution overall, as opposed to the best of my solutions. If that makes sense.
Cool. So what else can a hiring manager do to make it easy to work effectively with a recruiter?
Yeah.
Easy and effective.
So working exclusively, I guess being aware of the different recruitment models there are, is there's numerous different ways that a business might engage you. So traditional contingent, so no win, no fee kind of hiring, as it were. Retained kind of recruitment, which is whereby you would pay a kind of part of the fee up front, or in stages. And then there's kind of various other things like embedded models and recruitment as a service, where it's kind of more kind of paying on a longer term basis. And it's all various levels of commitment. You might get certain cost savings from going for those other models compared to contingent, for example. But you also get lots of other benefits in terms of whenever you give more commitment, generally speaking, you'll get more commitment and success from the kind of recruiter on that basis. Just like I say, good levels of engagement. I would always recommend kind of having checkpoint meetings in the diary to kind of ensure clear lines of communication, good feedback, and solid understanding, and also accountability. And that works both ways. So accountability, that the recruiter is giving you the service that you want. So you can then basically go, do you know what? I said I'd give you 3 weeks, but actually 2 weeks in, you're not really delivering. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to look at someone else unless you can step it up swiftly. But equally, the other way around as well, making sure that that you're reviewing the CVs in a timely fashion, giving good levels of feedback off the back of interviews, etc. Yeah, that's kind of the core things. It's the levels of engagement. And also being aware, as much as anything within any marketplace, that sometimes there is a case of you get what you pay for. There's lots of agencies out there who will charge absolute peanuts, and I'm talking frighteningly small amounts of money, but they also can't necessarily deliver what others can. They've not got the specific knowledge, and you also need to think about the fact that a recruiter is effectively going to be your face in the marketplace. They are representing your business and your opportunity. Do you really want someone who is going to approach candidates and say, I'm looking for a C# developer? Do you want someone who is ringing up JavaScript developers and saying, I've got this great Java opportunity, and they're going, oh, great, it's nothing to do with me? You want to engage people who are specialists and have a proper understanding of what your requirement is. And I'll pretty much guarantee that when you said about the agencies who would have the role go up and then just start chucking stuff on the portal without actually having had a conversation, most of those will have been those very cheap agencies, because that's their approach. They're not looking for that engagement to get a thorough understanding, to make sure that they're representing you properly and representing themselves properly and really caring about their own brand.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, one of the best agents I have worked with and known for over 20 years. Somebody that originally placed me as a contractor in 2000. So again, those relationships matter. That building that reputation, it all carries through. And the other thing I wanted to really highlight there is when you talk about you get what you pay for. And I have seen this particularly in UK startups. Too often the focus becomes like, yes, we'll go and hire, but can you squeeze the agency? Can you get them down to 8%? Can you get them down to 5% margin? And it's like, well, I'm sure we can bully somebody down to that. And in some of these cases, I've been hiring people that are maybe on 40K. So that 5% margin, it isn't very much money. And I've sometimes had success in turning this around and saying, like, instead of bullying them down, let's focus on the value, because if I squeeze their margin, as you say, they're not going to be focused on it. They're not going to be the highest priority. Particularly when the competition for candidates was high, they're going to be working on other vacancies. And if they find somebody good, they're going to be taking them to company X that's paying them 15%, not to us paying them 5%. And I've had some success there in turning around and saying, well, that 10% we shave off the 40 grand salary, say, it's £4,000. What's the opportunity cost of us not having that person for another month? And if we're selling them on consultancy at 8 grand a month, the opportunity cost of not having that person, not being able to fulfill that project for the customer, was far, far higher on a month-by-month basis than what we save on recruiting fees. So, is it penny foolish, pound wise, or whatever the saying goes?
Pay cheap, pay twice is often the case. What's the value that having a really great person come into this role at? And what's the cost of hiring the wrong person into this role? Think about those things, and then think about, this is the company that's helping us to access those people, representing them to us and us to them. I guarantee that companies that you pay a kind of better percentage to, or whatever the arrangement is, the ones that you're not being cheap with effectively, guarantee that those companies are really looking at things from a more long-term perspective. They are the ones that are much more likely to kind of, again, be more consultative, offer the good and the bad, to help you get a fully rounded picture, and try to ensure that you're making the right decision, because they really care about that long-term relationship, because they're not looking for a one-hit win. They're looking for repeat business that's going to last a long time, versus someone who is just going like, John's talking about paying me 8%. What the hell is this about? I don't think so. They're going to just be like, look, I've got someone, I just want to get this job filled so that I'm not getting my manager annoying me about this job and saying, why haven't you filled it? That's kind of their main incentive, as opposed to a long-term, fruitful, profitable relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So apart from not squeezing the margins too ridiculously, what else can a hiring manager do to really make the relationship work? How important is a clear job spec and sharing details of the interview process and the hiring stages?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's all about the more engagement, the better. And any recruiter that doesn't want the engagement, bin them, because why the hell wouldn't you? Knowledge is power. You're gonna get, as a recruiter, you're gonna get asked loads of questions by candidates, and the more I'm not sure I'm gonna have to check, or I just don't know, I don't know, shrug, or whatever. That's going to create a worse impression for the prospective employee. So give as much information as you can. Be available to ask questions on a regular basis. Chucking the number of times where I've been told that just here's the job spec, go recruit for it, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And the client has then begrudgingly sat down with me for a chat, and then I've gone, okay, so talk to me about the role. And they're like, oh, you've got the spec. No, but tell me about the role anyway. And the role is not like the spec. They've given me a generic spec that is not reflective really of what it is. It's broadly, on a very high level perspective, partially reflective, but it's a job spec. It's their exhaustive job spec that the company uses. Like, I had a company that used Perl for some of their like really old legacy stuff, and that was in the spec. And it's like, do you need Perl? Well, no. Okay, I'm going to take that out then in that case, because you're going to put a lot of people off. Are they ever going to touch Perl? No. Right. Is it there?
I absolutely recognise that. I took a job probably about 10 years ago now, and I had seen the job advertised, or I had had people email me about the job for about 6 months. And I'd seen this job spec. People sent me, hey, are you interested? And I'd ignored it because I didn't match any of the 8 things that were listed on it. And then eventually a recruiter that knew me contacted me about it and said, hey, I don't think it's really about these things. And I told him I'd been ignoring this people reaching out for several months because it wasn't relevant to me. He said, I don't think it's about these things. Would you just talk to the hiring manager? So I did, and we got chatting, and long story short, I ended up with a job. And they're like, oh, it's great that we found you, John. We've been unable to fill this role for months.
I've got an idea why.
Yeah, I've seen it. But I then was with that company for several years, never touched any of the things that were on the spec that have been going out for months. And so, yeah, it's so important you get that balance right and make sure that it's tailored to what's relevant. Okay, Guy, I've had your attention for a long time, taken up a lot of your time. Before we wrap up and go, what else would you add? What are the key things that we might not have covered that you think everyone should be aware of?
I guess just linked in with what we were talking about before. So some of it is around AI, I guess. So from a hiring manager's perspective, there's a degree of we've created a bit of an arms race or a race to the bottom, however you want to put it, whereby this is the idea of the ATS that uses AI to filter things, and someone probably created the job spec and the advert using AI in the first place, and then the candidate takes it and goes, okay, ChatGPT, CV, make it suitable, make my application for me. ATS filters it using AI. Then you might then have an AI interview and an AI co-pilot on the candidate side of things. It's slightly ridiculous. I think the key thing really for all parties is just try to bring humanity back into it. For remote working roles, I appreciate it's really difficult to do this sometimes, but both from a hiring perspective or an applicant's perspective, if you can do something face to face, do it face to face. It makes such a difference for a prospective company to meet you in person, to kind of know that you're not using a co-pilot or whatever. Simple things like that human experience face to face does make a big difference sometimes. Other than that, from a kind of employer's perspective, when you're doing interviews, don't just ask a straight technical question of how would you do this, because when you do that, that's really easy for an AI co-pilot to give you a correct answer. So ask for a specific example of, like, where have you used this? Okay, tell me about that. What was the impact on the company? Yeah, it could still come up with some lies, but there's some lies that you might be able to verify or kind of check. And the key thing is it's about quality over quantity. I would say if you were, as an applicant, if I was given the choice between applying for 20 jobs versus applying for 10 jobs and actually doing a bit of follow-up with those hiring managers or recruiters, I'd go for the second option every single time, because one is just throwing something out into the ether. One is, again, it's that human aspect. You're more visible, you're more human. You're suddenly a person, not just a CV. So yeah, that's the key thing. Is I think everyone could do with focusing more on quality and less on cutting corners, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said earlier, you're in the business of supplying people. It's all about people. So keep the focus there. Okay, cool. Thanks very much, guys. So if somebody wants to do business with you and work with you, how should they best get in touch?
Yep. So either reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me at guy.allen, ALLEN, at futura-talent.com. And yeah, I basically cover tech broadly, but mostly kind of software engineering, data, and a lot on the kind of AI, machine learning, computer vision side of things at the moment in the UK, US, and a bit in the EU.
Okay, awesome. And we'll put those domains and links in the show notes so people don't have to remember how to spell them. It's been a pleasure talking to you. you.